Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm Raffi, joined by Davian. Davian, the NFL season is only days away as of the posting of this podcast. We have made it. We got out of the dark times, and now the NFL season is about to begin. College football is underway. Hockey and basketball season are very close to. College basketball season is also getting closer. We finally made it out of the dark times. Postseason baseball, which I love a ton, as much as I dog on regular season baseball is getting near. So, Davian, we finally made it. The end times are over. Let's talk about the NFL. But before we do that, Davian, how are you? How are things? How ready are you for football? Because I've never been this excited to finally get back to some actual sports, unlike baseball or regular season baseball.
Yeah, no, same here, Rafi. I mean, honestly, love baseball. Love seeing the Yankees, except not recently, honestly. They haven't been playing too great. But look, there's nothing better than college football coming back. There's nothing better than NFL football coming back. It's really it's beginning to be one of the best times of the year almost. The weather is it's a nice cool breeze outside. It's not too hot. NFL Red Zone starting up in just a couple of weeks. College football, we have Big Noon kickoff this week, and it's just there's a whole lot of things going in the up and up, Rafi. But as I say that, there's a whole lot of teams I'm not too psyched about heading into this NFL season, and I'd love to really discuss on what your predictions are, Rafi, because just for the viewers to know, before this we started this recording, Rafi and I were going a bit back and forth, and we clearly saw there is some divide. And if there's ever been a controversial podcast where Rafi and I don't agree on some things, it has always been the NFL predictions. This is where we always have a huge divide in what or who we expect to see. And I can't wait to see, Rafi, your dumb takes this year go around.
I'll just mention that out of me, you, and then when Theodore was on the podcast, I'm the only person who correctly predicted the Super Bowl. So I just want to say that as opposed to the Bears going and representing the. I believe that was the same year. The same year you had the Bears in the Super Bowl, I had Chiefs Niners, which
boring.
I'm glad one of us
boring
was
pick.
able
boring.
to have a good pick.
Very boring.
A boring yet it was a correct pick. So without further ado, let's dive in to the winner of that Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs division, the AFC West. Now, even with some of the losses of the Chiefs this past year, losing a little bit on the offensive line, still some questions over at running back. Is Pacheco going to be back to himself after, I believe he broke his fibula, or at least broke a bone in his leg, where he missed most of the season last year. I do expect the Chiefs to still lead this division, but we really saw the Broncos emerge as a top team in the AFC this past year. And as much as I want to say all the way to the AFC Championship game, I don't think they're at that stage yet of their ascent to the top of the AFC. But I do think that the Broncos are a playoff lock this year. And I would go as far as to say I think they'll win at least a game in this postseason. Maybe at least a wild card game. Maybe potentially win the divisional if the Cards go their way. I don't know if they're necessarily as good as the Bills, Ravens, or Chiefs, but the Broncos are, in my mind, one of the best teams. They have such an elite defensive unit. You have Pat Surtain in the secondary, obviously really one of the top defensive players in the NFL. You also have, I believe Zach Allen, really good off the rush for the Denver Broncos. So this is a team that I'm very high on. Sean Payton, still a mastermind. And then it's also, the AFC West also intrigues me too, because I still think the Chargers, with this time a healthy Justin Herbert, being fully healthy entering the season, is going to lead to them making it to the postseason. The Hampton-Harris RB duo, I think, is going to be a thunder and lightning type of running back duo once Najee Harris is ready to go. And the Raiders are a team that I don't think should be slept on. They upgraded their quarterback play a lot by picking up Geno Smith. I love Ashton Genty. I've talked about him ad nauseum the past couple of weeks as just a guy that I'm very, very high on, and would put him as a Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley year one level impact for his team. So I think the Raiders are on the up and up too. I have the Chiefs, Broncos, and the Chargers making the playoffs out of this division, and I think the Raiders are going to make a little bit of noise too. I have them as a 7-win team this year.
Okay, so we actually are not too far off, Rafi, on this one, because I too have the Chiefs. I have a different order though. I have the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos making it out. I'm not a fan of this Raiders team. I don't think that Geno Smith is particularly the answer. I think that bringing in Pete Carroll was a huge upgrade, but I really think that this team is very young still. Ashton Genty is an absolute beast. I think he's really going to help them out. But I see this Raiders team going 4-13 only. I really don't see this team really having a lot of great strides because you're in such a competitive division. I think what the Chiefs have going, I mean, it's the Chiefs. They're building a dynasty at this point if they're not already won. The Chargers, I think year 2 of Harbaugh, Justin Herbert adjusting to the system more. I think you're really going to see this Chargers team step up. The only thing that concerns me though, Raffi, is their running back core and the loss of and their defensive line. They no longer have Joey Bosa. There's questions about, whether they found a good replacement or not for him. And so, there is some questions I think to be had about the Chargers. And I think I could be very wrong about this prediction. But I think at the same time, I very much see this. I very much see this Chargers offense taking great strides. Hopefully Pirate Najee Harris can actually see the ball and be able to run well. But if not, we'll have to look at that more closely. But I don't think there's anything more to really discuss about the AFC West. I think we're very much on the same page. I'm not going to repeat everything you said about the Broncos, but I think that they're a really big juggernaut of a team, and I clearly see them making the playoffs and winning a game.
100%. And again, the Raiders, you have Max Crosby on the defensive line. You picked up Jeremy Chin, who's a decent guy in the secondary as well. So I do expect that defense to take a little bit of strides, but I do agree it's going to be a tough division for the Raiders, but I do think that they're going to impress some teams this year and just impress some people this year who probably were pitting the Raiders as one of the worst teams in the NFL this upcoming season. Let's move over to your favorite teams division, the AFC East. And outside of Buffalo, I'm really not that big of a fan of the rest of this division in the sense that I think it's just a whole lot of mid in the sense that the Dolphins, I think their window was a couple of years ago. I think that window is closing. Tyreek Hill is going to be a big question. Is he washed? Is he cooked? Jalen Waddle had a really poor year last year. And obviously the big question too is Tua going to stay healthy? That's always the big question. If he's healthy, the offense is clicking. If he's hurt, which unfortunately is more often than not, then this Dolphins team's ceiling is very, very limited. They've been continuously losing players on the defense. They lost Jalen Ramsey this past offseason. And overall, I think this team is just slowly going to start to regress more and more. Speaking of a team that's going to be on the opposite side, taking some steps to going towards the playoffs, I think the Patriots are going to take that step up, be in that 8-ish win range, 7 to 9 win range. And with the pickup of Stephon Diggs, I think that he is going to have a really good year this year, and I think he's really going to help out Drake May. Mike Vrabel is going to get the defense going. It's still a decent defensive unit as a whole. And then there's the Jets, and those are the Jets. I really want Justin Fields to be that guy in the NFL, but I just feel like overall the Jets ceiling is very limited in my mind. I think potentially, I know they picked up Becton, who was a good fit with the Eagles last year. Becton left the Jets, was a really good fit for the Eagles this past year and then signed elsewhere. But overall, I think the Jets are probably going to be the worst in the division at 5 or 6 wins this year. I really hope Justin Fields is better, though, but I don't know.
Have faith, Raffi. Have faith. I have faith in Justin Fields. I have faith in Tua. I have faith in Drake May. And I have somewhat faith in Josh Allen. Why am I saying this, though? Because I have the Bills finishing at 15-2, second in the AFC Conference, behind the Ravens. The Patriots finishing at 12-5. The Jets finishing at 9-8. And the Tua-led Dolphins finishing at 8-9. I truly do have a lot of belief in this Jets team. I think that the Patriots are going to make absolutely amazing strides with Mike Vrabel, with Drake May, year 2, sophomore campaign. And I think that they have a very easy strength of schedule, and I think that they're really going to capitalize on those wins where they need to. I think this Dolphins team is just a team that doesn't seem to excite me anymore. This isn't the Dolphins team where Mike McDaniels first came in, where they just brought in Tyreek Hill. Yes, they still have a very, very elite offense. Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, uh, Tyreek Hill. But Tyreek Hill's getting older. Tua hasn't really made a lot of progression. And so they very much concern me, and that's why I have the Dolphins finishing last in the division. But going back again, I have faith in Justin Fields. I have faith in what they've been putting together in their secondary. The wide receiver core is a bit shaky, of course. I mean, you have Garrett Wilson, but your wide receiver 2 is Alan Lazard. There's some questions to be had there. But with the Bills, I think the Bills have been and will continue to be an absolute juggernaut of a team. I mean, Raffi, I really don't know what's stopping this team. Yes, they lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Stephon Diggs a long time ago. Wow, I'm already losing my train of thought. But I really think that this Bills team is an absolute juggernaut. I think that their offense is very well put together. Their defense, bring in Joey Bosa on a 1-year contract. I think he's really there to prove himself. And hopefully it doesn't end up like the failed experiment of Von Miller. But I really do have a lot of faith in this Bills team. Even though I hate saying
I think the big thing with the Bills too is Josh Allen showed that he is a quarterback that can make wide receivers that may not be a number 1 wide receiver play up to a really solid level to where you have a lot of really solid wide receiver 2s while complement each other very, very well, and led to some winning football. Shakir and Keon Coleman, 2 wide receivers that both had some solid moments last year, Shakir especially. So I fully expect them both to have a really solid year this year. Dalton Kincaid, another guy where expecting him to take that next step. He's still rather young, so we'll see if he can continue his progression and be one of the top premier tight ends in the NFL at some point. And yeah, I get what you're saying about the AFC East, but again, I don't really like a lot of these defensive units. I will say though, if the Jets do get 7-8 wins, I do think that's going to be largely attributed to the fact that there's just not drama like there was last year. We saw what happened with Saleh getting fired midseason. The Aaron Rodgers situation was always something. It always felt like every single week there was something new that Aaron Rodgers was saying. Then they tried to bring in Devontae Adams to fix the team. They brought in Lazard earlier in the year. And it was just very like Rodgers. So I think now that they don't need to think about that, now that they have Aaron Glenn kind of running the show with the New York Jets, I wouldn't be shocked if the less drama that's going on with the team, they play a little better, but I don't feel good about the defense. And again, it's similar to the Dolphins. The defense is just, it continues to get worse year after year. And if I had to pick out of those 3, I'd have the Patriots ahead of both of them at this point. I think that I'm willing to bet on Drake May and a younger Patriots team progressing than the Dolphins staying potentially progressing, because at this point the Dolphins are such an old team where I really do think, as I mentioned earlier, that the window was at least a few seasons ago when they made the playoffs and then lost to the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, because there's no such thing as snow in Miami. Moving on, we can go into the AFC North. The AFC North, Trey Hendrickson, that deal finally figured out. They gave him a raise, $30 million for this year. And then they're essentially punting on this whole drama until the offseason, which honestly was the best move for the Bengals. I think the big thing for them is just stay healthy. If Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, or T. Higgins, or even Chase Brown miss any time, I think this Bengals team is essentially cooked. Their defense is, outside Trey Hendrickson, really poor, which was why it would make no sense for them to trade him at any point this season. But I do think that those 4 offensive weapons and then Trey Hendrickson playing with a bunch of just loose strings is enough for the Bengals to make the playoffs. I have them as a 9-win team. I have the Ravens as a 12-win team. I don't really think there's too much contention with that. The Ravens are one of the big 3 in the AFC. It's the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. So I have the Ravens quite highly. They picked up Jair Alexander this offseason too to really bolster the secondary, Jair Alexander. So that's going to be a big pickup for their secondary that's already really solid to Kyle Hamilton at safety, a big proponent of that. Then I have the Steelers not above 500. I do not have Mike Tomlin continuing the streak. I have them at 8-9. I like DK Metcalf. I like Aaron Rodgers, TJ Watt, but I just think this team is just extremely old, and I'm expecting them to kind of take a step back this upcoming season. I like the RB duo of Johnson and Warren. I think that that's a potential RB duo that could surprise some people and be really solid. But this team just screams regression to me, and I just think that they're going to slowly just start to fall off. And I think we see that regression this year. And then lastly, the Browns with 2 wins. It's the Browns. I don't think I need to talk too much more about them. They have Myles Garrett, who they're giving $40 million to.
Yeah. Raffi, I do need to disagree with you somewhere. I do have faith in Aaron Rodgers, and I do have faith of them going over 500 at 9-8. This Bengals team, I don't really have that much faith. I think I'm going to use your exact explanation to be the reason why they go 7-10. I just feel like this team is not very well rounded in many ways, and I see them choking from time to time, and I see the drops from last year continuing this year. The issues that Joe Burrow had will continue, I think. And yeah, they'll have some wins, but I think they'll also have some ugly losses against some teams. And so that's why I have the Steelers finishing at 9-8, Bengals at 7-10, Browns at 4-13, and of course the Ravens at 15-2. Going off the Ravens, what you said, I think that this Ravens team continues to bolster themselves and to become a better team year after year. I really truly think that they can make a lot of great strides this year, and they could take on the Chiefs, and they could take on the big heavy players of this AFC conference.
Yeah, again, I just think the Bengals offense is good enough to where they can get out of those games, but we did see last season a lot of those games where we saw the defense still let the team down, to where the Bengals, Joe Burrow would throw for 5 touchdowns and the Bengals somehow lose that game. But we can disagree. We're allowed to disagree on this podcast. It's definitely better than the status quo of us agreeing on everything or be too nice. So, David, that was a terrible prediction. I think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs this year. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Okay, yeah, fine.
And then lastly,
clip it. Go ahead.
Then lastly, we have the AFC South and the AFC. Davian, I'll hand it over to you for the AFC South and your thoughts initially.
Yeah, let's do it.
Don't really think there's too much to say, so I'll let you take the first crack at it.
Yeah, all right. AFC South, it's a tough division, Raffi, because so many teams suck here. I mean, look, I have the Texans finishing first, right? I think, Raffi, you and I can agree on that. The Jags, I have them finishing at 6-11. I really they just don't excite me in a lot of ways. I think they brought in new offensive pieces to help out Trevor Lawrence. I think that's going to be huge. But I just feel like there's a lot of things still missing with this team, and that's why I have them finishing at 6-11. The Titans, it's a rookie quarterback. I really don't think they have anything well built around him except for Calvin Ridley, who's a great wide receiver, but I really don't think it's a lot. And the Colts...
Would you bet on him having a good year this year, Davian?
Would I bet on Cam Ward not having a good year? Is that your question?
No, bet on Calvin Ridley having a good year.
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley will have a good year. I think Cam Ward will have a good year too. I think we could talk about awards later on, but I do think that Cam Ward could win Rookie of the Year.
I really hope someone picked up the gambling joke that I threw in there who's listening to this podcast, but continue on with your...
Oh, sorry. You cut out for me on my side. My bad, Raffi. I just...
Anyways, continue on.
You start making these weird eye contacts. I'm like, what is he doing? What is he looking at? Any case. All right, I'm going to finish off the Colts. The Colts are starting Daniel Jones. Nothing more to be said here. 1-16.
Jeez, when I do my predictions, I do wind up with some wonky things my first run through, where I have teams like the Saints and the Browns at 0-17. But you gotta have some faith that they're gonna pick up a game somewhere. That team
I do have faith. The Colts pick up a singular game.
Daniel Jones was able to get the Giants a couple wins last year, and this Colts offense is arguably better than the Giants offense was last year. You can make the argument that Neighbors was better,
I don't see
but the Colts offensive line...
What? I see that they picked up a win off the Titans, but I don't see their schedule is tough. You're playing the Chiefs, the Jags, who I think are going to be better than they were. Maybe they pick off a win against the Seahawks, maybe, but I don't really see a whole lot.
I have them at 5-12. I have them at 5-12 with wins against the Dolphins. I have them being the Titans. I have them splitting with the Titans this upcoming season. I have them being the Steelers. I have them taking one on the Texans because why not? And then I have them taking one on the Jaguars. So that gets them to the 5 wins. I don't think this Colts team should. I don't think they're a playoff team by any means, and I don't think they're going to be close to 500. But this Colts team is better than the Giants last year. So I think Daniel Jones he's not going to be amazing by any means, but I think he's good enough to where the Colts can win a couple of games this year. I don't think 5 wins is out of the question. I know we're fighting over a 5-win versus a 1-win season for the Colts, but I think you're selling the Colts a little too short here. Again, we're fighting over a couple of wins, so it's really not worth too much energy. But I think the Colts are at least good for 5 wins. The Jaguars, in my mind, are just an enigma where it felt like every single game for the past 3 years, it's like, okay, if the Jaguars offense finally clicks, this team will go somewhere. And Davian, we have waited 3 years, and this Jaguars offense, since they went 8-3 a few years back, has not clicked. Maybe Liam Cohen can do something, but from here on out, I'm out on the Jaguars. I'm done with them. I don't want any. I have them at 7-10. Maybe this finally is the year where the offense puts it together, but we're at Gamblers Falls. I'm going against the Gamblers. I can't keep investing my positive words and positive vibes into this team. I'm done with the Jaguars. I'm out on them. If they prove me wrong, I'm more than happy to eat it, but I'm just done with them. When are we going to see the Jaguars finally get the offense together? I don't know if it's ever going to happen. Especially with how ETN played last year with such a poor season. Their run game's really poor. Brian Thomas Jr. is a really solid option at wide receiver. He had a breakout year last year, but dude, I'm just bewildered. It's like the Buffalo Sabres of the NFL. You keep thinking that they're gonna wind up having a breakout season, and it just for some reason just they showed flashes a couple of years ago. They made the playoffs. They came back versus the Chargers because the Chargers are cursed, and now they're just I don't know, man. I'm out on the Jaguars. That's the end of my story. But everything else, I do agree with you on. I have the Titans winning a couple of games. I think I have them as a 4 or 5 win team. So
I have them as a 3-1 team.
Taking some strides, and then the Texans, I agree with you. I don't think there's too much to add. That defense is going to be really solid this year, and then I do expect CJ Stroud to have the bounce back year, even with losing Stephon Diggs this past offseason. Let's move over to the NFC now. We'll spin the wheel. Let's go NFC West, Davian. Your thoughts on the NFC West?
The NFC West is an interesting division because a lot of these teams have been really upgrading themselves a lot. I think that the Niners are still a very good team. I think that they've had a lot of injuries, but I think that, their core team stays intact. That's why I have them finishing at 13-4. And I think, Raffi, this is where we might disagree with the Niners. The Rams concern me. Look, I have the Rams going at 10-7, but I really don't have them doing well until their bye week, really. Because of the injury to Matthew Stafford. Nobody knows what's going on with Stafford right now. Like, literally nobody. They don't have Cooper Kupp anymore. They do have other good wide receiver, like good pieces on, that Puka Nacua. I mean, I feel like he speaks for himself. But I'm really concerned about the Stafford injury, and I feel like it's really going to, that's why I don't see them doing well in the beginning half of the season. I have them going 10-7. Now, where's Cooper Kupp? He's on the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks going 9-8. I just don't know if Sam Darnold is really the answer for the Seahawks, really. That's my biggest concern. I don't know if what we saw on the Vikings was a fluke or not, and I really hope to be proven wrong, but until I have them, breaking over 500 but not doing crazy lot. And then we have the Kyler Murray Call of Duty playing Cardinals. Now, I'm not a hater of the Cardinals like Theodore, our other podcast buddy who comes here from time to time, was or is. But I'm just not a fan of this team a lot. I really think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to make his sophomore year jump. And that's why I have them going at 7-10. I really don't have them going anything better than that. I think you're going to see their defense really step up this season. And it would be very interesting to see if their defense can cause havoc, but I don't have them being very competitive.
Yeah, the Niners are a team where it feels like every few years they just have a catastrophic, terrible season where everyone on their team somehow gets injured, and that is exactly what happened last year. But the nice thing about that, obviously it's a year that you threw out of your contention window, but the good thing out of that is you look at the Niners schedule, And I really can't. It was hard for me to have them any lower than 10, 11 wins. I have them 12-5. It was really tough for me to pick the Niners to lose games just because of that low record. They're now scheduled to play against some pretty poor teams. I think the Niners have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. Yes, you got rid of Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk, is he the guy? Christian McCaffrey, who knows what's going on with him? He seems to be good to go. We haven't heard too much about him. And the defense is still, you still got some good, solid pieces on that defense. Nick Bosa being one of the big components of that. But we'll see what winds up happening with the Niners. I have them in first place, provided that they don't get completely bombarded by injuries. The Rams I have in second. Davian, you hit the nail on the head pretty well. I have them at 10-7. I think Devontae Adams is an upgrade over Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp slowed down a little bit last year, and I think Devontae Adams is the guy who has yet to show any signs of regression. He's still only 30 years old, and I think he's going to have a really solid year this upcoming year. And I'm not just saying that just because I have Nakua and Adams on my fantasy football league. The big thing, as you mentioned, is going to be Matt Stafford. It looks like he's going to be good to go to start the season, but again, Davian, what is this injury? How long is this? Because this team is 10-7 in our minds with him healthy. If he's missing time, I don't know if this team is going to be over 500. I think the Rams are the team that I have the biggest question marks about, because this is a team that is such a solid defensive unit still and a really solid offense to where they could potentially be competing for the NFC Championship game. But if Matthew Stafford does get hurt or misses a large amount of time, then I think the floor for this team is one of the lowest. I think it just has I think it has the widest gap of possibilities, the Rams this year, where they have the ceiling of a team that could potentially represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but they have the floor of a team that only wins 6-ish games this year. So we'll see with the Rams. And then Seattle and Arizona, you hit the nail on the head in my mind. I have them both in the 8-9 win range, where they are going to be solid teams. I don't know if they're necessarily a playoff team. And they both have some things to like about them, but they both have their question marks too. Is the Cardinals' defensive unit going to really step up this year? Calais Campbell being brought back is a great story to kind of end the storybook ending for his career. And then the Seahawks, as you mentioned, the big question is going to be Sam Darnold. Was last year a fluke or not? Because overall, the offense in Seattle, even with a regressing Cooper Kupp, I still think that's a big addition alongside Jackson Smith and Jigba. And overall, we've talked about some of the guys that we like on Seattle's defense in previous podcasts. So I think both Seattle and Arizona have the potential to surprise, but I agree with you. I have them capped off as 8-9 win teams with the potential to do a little better or do a little worse. I have both of them essentially as mid teams.
Okay. Raffi, we've been agreeing way too much. So I'm going to punt it down to the NFC South. I want to see where you predict your Falcons at.
So NFC South, I have Tampa Bay in first at 12-5. Then
12-5.
I have 12-5.
Damn.
Defense is really solid. Offense is really good. Yes, you lose Liam Cohen, but it's a team that has been quite ageless. Now, I just think that they're going to be taking out a lot. Again, they have a pretty nice schedule too, so I think this team is good enough to once again bounce back or continue to play off of a couple solid past seasons. And I slept on them the past couple of years. I got burned by that, and they didn't really have any big losses. Chris Godwin will be back mid-season, so I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Emeka Egbuka, very high on him. So I think this Tampa offense is still going to be really solid even when Godwin is missing half the season. I have the Saints at the bottom at 4-13. Don't ask me how I got those 4 wins. I think that they'll win a couple games. We don't know if Tyler Shuck is that guy. Chris Olave, can he stay healthy? Kamara, is he going to start regressing at some point? Is the defense going to start regressing? Because the defense is really old too. I don't really like the Saints. The Panthers, I think, are going to be 5-12. I have them being a little bit better. I think Bryce Young's going to take another step this year. Ted McMillan, really high on him as well. They upgraded the offensive line a little bit. The defense is slowly coming along, but that defense still is poor at best, so I don't really have them making too much noise. And then I have my Atlanta Falcons at the most Atlanta Falcons record that you could possibly have, and that is 15. No, I'm kidding. I have them at 9-8. Michael Penix Jr., I think he's going to struggle a little bit out the gate just because first full season, training camp, first full training camp as a starter. I think he might struggle a little bit out the gate, but I think once things get moving along, the Falcons will be a team that could potentially be in the playoff mix. I have them one game out of the playoffs. I have the Rams and Vikings at 10-7. And then I have teams, we'll get into the Packers and the NFC North, but I have teams like the Packers, then the Seahawks we just talked about, and the Falcons all at 9-8, just outside looking in. The big thing for the Falcons is going to be, can Walker and Pierce make big impacts on the edge for the Falcons? If both of them can come in and be game wreckers off ball and be really solid edge rushers, then this Falcons team ceiling is significantly higher than initially predicted. They can be a playoff team if both of them hit. The big thing for the Falcons has always been the pass rush, and then getting sacked. So if Walker and Pierce can be those guys and get after the quarterback and actually sack the quarterback, then this Falcons team goes from a 9-win team to potentially even being a 12-win team potentially. I think that's probably their ceiling if we see both Pierce and Walker really take the NFL by storm this upcoming season. I think Walker, you put him at linebacker, outside linebacker. You can also play him at edge. And then I think Pierce is going to be a really solid guy at the edge. Was a protected top 5 pick before. A decent but not fantastic year at Tennessee this past college football season. So that's kind of my synopsis on the Falcons. I think the floor for them is a 7-8 win team, but I do think the ceiling for them is pretty high as a 12-win team. But I have them at 9-8, somewhere in the middle, because it's the Atlanta Falcons and they're perpetually a mid team for some reason.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you to a certain aspect. I do have the Bucks at 10-7. I have the Falcons at 8-9. The Panthers, I only have at 3-14. I think you're right; they make strides, but I'm looking at their schedule. I don't see that many games I have to win.
I don't think wins necessarily matter for the Panthers if Bryce Young shows signs that he's the guy. If Bryce Young cements himself as the guy and they win 4 games, I think overall people are going to be really happy coming out of the Panthers season. Obviously, you don't want to win 4 games, but if Bryce Young is the biggest win for the Panthers this year. If he shows that he's the guy and he was worth the trade up, then you feel better about however the rest of the season goes for the team.
I agree, because once you figure out that Bryce Young's your franchise QB, then you could easily build around it. But right now there's questions about like whether Bryce Young is at QB. The same way, that's why I have the Colts at so low, because they're not giving Richardson a chance to even prove himself, to prove that he's their franchise QB. And because of that, this is when all of a sudden the Colts are tanking for Archie. But that makes no sense. When you have a good QB, give them a shot. And it's really disappointing that, a team like the Colts aren't. I really hope that it works out for the Panthers. Speaking about other QBs in the NFC South, Tyler Shough, I think, can be good if he gets a chance to start. Raffi, they're starting Spencer Rattler, who went 0-6 in his 6 starts last year. This is a guy who has just not proven himself in the big leagues yet. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, it's a Geno Smith story where, I wrote him off and he didn't write back. So Spencer Rattler, if you're watching this, go prove me wrong. It's a challenge for you. But in any case, Raffi, it seems like we mostly agree on a lot of things. But there is, 2 more divisions left. And Raffi, I'll let you make
hit something real quick. I just want to hit on something real quick. Sorry, before we move on.
Yeah, what's up?
You mentioned the Spencer Rattler thing, and what do you have to lose to start Tyler Shough this year? He's 25. He turns 26.
Nothing.
In a
so
month.
Why not start him?
This isn't a guy who's. I think teams are way too volatile when it comes to quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson was a project quarterback that you bet on his upside. He was 20 years old, and we're seeing 2 years later the Colts are potentially punting on him. He's 22 still. He's younger than me. Why are we punting on him yet? I know he hasn't shown the flashes, but he's a guy where it's like you give him a couple more years to at least develop a little bit and move along. You can't just take a raw player like we saw with Trey Lance or Anthony Richardson and then get upset 2 years later when they're 22 years old and say, well, this guy's not tearing up the NFL yet. The whole purpose of you taking them was a project pick, high upside. Be patient. Meanwhile, with the Saints, you take a guy who's going to be 26 in a month as a rookie, start him. You have nothing to lose. You already know what Spencer Rattler is. And as much as I wish Spencer Rattler was better and taking the NFL by storm would have been a great comeback story, he hasn't shown enough in my mind to warrant being the QB1. Start Tyler Shough. If he plays poorly, then okay, then you go back to Spencer Rattler. You lose nothing. At the end of the day, the Saints are not going to be competing for a playoff spot this year. You might as well find out what you have in the quarterback that you took high with a top 40 pick in the NFL draft last year. It bewilders me. I completely agree with you. It makes no sense why you wouldn't at least give him a shot if Spencer Rattler just beat him out. Then I go with, okay, you know what? Let's take the chance on the guy that hasn't played yet in the NFL. Let's see what he is. And then worst case, we go back to Spencer Rattler. We're not going to win many games anyways. It is what it is. But Davian, you can set us up for the next division.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you in that, rant and statement. I really feel like we got to have this conversation all day long about, teams like really giving quarterbacks a chance. But let's go to the NFC North. Raffi, we have a lot of history with the NFC North. I predicted, a few years ago that the Bears would do very good. The Bears did not do very good that year. But I have a new prediction now, Raffi. In first place, I have the Lions finishing at 13-4. Then the Bears at 12-5, followed by the Packers and the Vikings not doing so great because it's basically J.J. McCarthy's rookie year. And I think that he's going to show signs of basically being like a rookie.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy is going to be interesting to start the season. We've talked about this before when we were doing our breakout players. J.J. McCarthy, I would say, is an upgrade over Sam Darnold. And Kevin O'Connell is a QB whisperer. So when you take what was essentially the same Vikings team last year and just bring that this year, they still have a really solid defensive unit. They still have Justin Jefferson.
True.
TJ Hawkinson is going to be fully healthy this year and not missing the first half of the season. Why can't J.J. McCarthy be that guy? He's a game manager. Yeah. He's not going to be – I don't think J.J. McCarthy is ever going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but he's going to be at least a guy who's going to be able – he's not going to lose you games in my mind. He's a guy that's going to be able to show up, get your team a good portion of wins. You build a solid team around him, and he's a good overall quarterback. It's like what we saw in Michigan. He wasn't the key star player on that team. They had a great running back duo. They had a great offensive line. They had great weapons, and they built a really solid team around him, and he managed the game really well, led them to a national championship. I think the same thing here is with the Vikings. I think overall you surrounded him with a really, really solid team that can help him and push him to be a really solid quarterback, and he just needs to hit his throws. As long as he's managing the game well, I think the Vikings are a playoff team. I have them as a 10-7 team. The Lions, I don't think there's too much to add on the Lions right now. I have the Lions as one of the top teams in the NFC, 13-4. I don't think there's too much to talk about, especially with the healthy Aiden Hutchinson. The big thing for them is just going to be healthy. They really got hampered with injuries down the stretch, which really affected how far they wound up going in the NFL playoffs last year. But this is a team where you still have the dynamic duo of Gibbs and Montgomery. You have your Flash and your Thunders, your duo. So that's great. Jameson Williams, I think, is going to have a breakout year this year. Very, very high on him. Packers are a team that has a really solid defense, but the big question just comes with the offense. Is Jordan Love what we saw year one, or is he Jordan Love year two? That's going to be the big thing for me. The offense, the wide receivers concern me a lot. I love Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is going to be great, but they regressed on the O-line. The wide receivers haven't shown me that they can catch the ball. I know they took Matthew Golden in the first round. Hallelujah, they finally did that. Aaron Rodgers is not happy about that at all watching that. But the Packers I have as a team with 8-9, 9-8 potential. And then I have the Bears of the Chicago, of the same place that I've grown up as a 8-win team. I think they'll take steps. They upgraded the offensive line. The defense is solid, but it's the Bears. And if there's anything I've learned from living in Chicago for 23 years, is to not overestimate the Bears. I've seen it burn people before. I don't want to get burned on it. I have the Bears as an 8-win team. I know they have a really nice schedule. I know Caleb Williams is highly considered to take that next step. They upgraded the offensive line. I just don't think that they are a playoff team right now. I think we see them progress to being an 8-9 win team.
I mean, this is a Ben Johnson-led team. I think this is a better team than it was last year.
I have them 1 year away from the playoffs. This year, they take that step. It's similar to the Patriots. I have the Bears and Patriots very similar to each other, where I have them in that 7-9 win range Patriots more closer to 7, Bears closer to 9. And then next year, as long as they have that progression that I want to see from them, then I'm willing to say, you know what, Patriots in the playoffs, Bears in the playoffs. Let's do it. But we just need to. I just need to see Caleb Williams be more calm under center and not try to play hero ball too much. I want to see Roma Dunze more involved in the offense. Ben Johnson, I think, is going to do a really good job with that offense and getting some different looks out there and building up this offense overall. But I just think that they're a bit too they lean a little too much on the passing game. I don't really like DeAndre Swift, and Caleb Williams tends to play a little too much hero ball. I think he just needs to be a little more calmer in the pocket. It's a gift and a curse. It's good that he can make some things out of nothing, but when you're constantly doing it and constantly running around, it's not a recipe for success.
Raffi, one name.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, Raffi. It is the Ben Johnson era in the Bears country, in Chicagoland. Ben Johnson has arrived, and I believe that he has turned around the culture on this team to be one of a winning culture. I think he's going to figure out how to use Caleb Williams in a very effective way, like he did with Jared Goff on the Lions. And I think that you won't see Caleb Williams playing hero ball anymore because he won't need to, because he'll have an offense that's built for him in every single capacity. I think that they have great wide receiver core. I actually do like DeAndre Swift. I'm very high on the Bears. I have the Bears at a lovely 12-5. I have the Lions. I think this Lions team is very, very good, in many aspects. I have them at 13-4. The Packers at 9-8. Look, we can talk about the Vikings a lot, and I know, I went through my rankings already before, but the reason why I'm repeating them is because I just think it's a very competitive division, and that's why I have the Vikings at such a low record in many ways. Because yes, it is an upgrade to have JJ McCarthy, but I think JJ McCarthy needs time to settle in. But JJ McCarthy is the long-term answer. There's no reason to pay Sam Darnold for a couple of years when JJ McCarthy actually just needs the experience to be able to get settled in.
But have you considered the Vikings defense? I really do like the Vikings defense was so good last year, and it
did. I agree.
I just think they're going to take again. I think out of all of the possible situations, I think JJ McCarthy as his official rookie season is best set up for success. I don't think it's for out of all the young quarterbacks who are starting as I think Michael Penix Jr. starting a full season, you can make an argument that his situation is really well, but I think JJ McCarthy is, if not first, a close second or at least a close first, 1A, 1B in terms of just overall team around him. I think that the Vikings offense is not going to miss a beat and potentially could be even better. I think I'd rather have JJ McCarthy as your game manager than Sam Darnold, in my personal opinion. I'm very high on JJ McCarthy, and I think this Vikings team is going to be a 10-win team and could potentially be an 11-win team.
Okay, that's bold. I will disagree.
Moving on.
But continue.
All right, moving now to the final division before we get into our playoff predictions. NFC East. Davian, your thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to keep this nice and short because I know our viewers are probably getting tired listening to me yap. I like the Commanders. I think they do better than the Eagles this year. I have the Commanders 12-5. The Eagles at 10-7. I think they regress. I think the Eagles have a very, very competitive schedule, and that's going to really hurt them. And then I have the Giants at 7-10. I think that the Giants make some strides. I think having Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, I think the connection with, I think seeing Malik Neighbors continue to progress, seeing a defense that I think is starting to come together better. You're going to see the Giants take more strides, I think. And then with Cowboys, I have them at 6-11. I really think that the in-house drama at this Cowboys organization, the lack of investments over the years. Yes, you still have CeeDee Lamb, you still have Dak Prescott, you still have a very solid defense. I just think that a lot of the noise is going to get to them, and they're going to lose a lot of games. And I think this might be the last year. This might be the beginning of the end for the Dak Prescott era in Dallas. I really think that he needs to prove himself this year, and I just don't think he does.
The Cowboys I have them at 8-9. Could be in that 9-8 range. I agree.
Okay.
I don't have them as a playoff team. I think the defense is going to take a step back. The offense, the team is good enough to be in that 8-9 win range, but I just don't think that they have the high end talent anymore to be a team that winds up making the playoffs consistently. And I think we're seeing the decline of the Dallas Cowboys right now. Again, the big question is going to be the running back play, and if they're going to get good running back play, that's going to be the big thing for the Cowboys. I have the Eagles at 14-3, Commanders at 11-6. A lot of people aren't too high on the Commanders, but I think that they showed enough last year to where I'm willing to bet on them again. Jane Daniels is a guy that I don't expect to take a step back this year, so I have them being really solid. The Giants I have it 4 wins. I don't really like that because you have Abdul Carter, you have Brian Burns off the edge, which I think is a really solid duo. The secondary gives me the big question mark. Russell Wilson is good enough in my mind to where the Giants, I think, will win more. If I can rework some things, I think potentially I'd have the Giants more in the 6-win range, 7-win range than the 4-win range, just because I really do like that pass rush. And I think the offensive line is going to keep taking some more steps. And Malik Neighbors, year 2, is going to be really solid. So we'll see what winds up happening. So real quick, Davian, let's just run through NFC. I have going from 1 to 7. I have Lions, Eagles, Bucks, Niners, Commanders, Vikings, Rams.
Okay. I have Lions, Niners, Commanders, Bucks, Bears, Eagles, Rams.
Okay, so the big difference is you have the Bears, I have the Vikings, I believe.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then moving over to the AFC, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans, Broncos, Bengals, and then the Chargers.
Okay, so our biggest difference, I have the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Patriots, Chargers, Broncos. I think our difference is with the Bengals, I believe, correct?
Correct. I have the Bengals in the playoffs, and you do not. Going into NFC, just going to our final 4 semis and then into our Super Bowl predictions. Let's go. Oh, you gotta bet. You know what? The last time we saw the Bills have its Super Bowl level caliber team, they made the Super Bowl 4 times. They probably won one of those. At this point, I'm just going to keep banking on the Bills eventually going to the Super Bowl. Sure, we'll go with the Bills. I think Josh Allen is going to have an MVP season. I think he's good enough to lead this team. The defense is still solid enough. I have the Bills in the Super Bowl playing against the Detroit Lions. I was robbed of the Detroit Lions Super Bowl prediction last year because of injuries. This year, the injury bug will be nice for them. The Lions, and then I have the Detroit Lions being the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, and the Lions with Jared Goff win a Super Bowl where Jared Goff-led offense scores more than 7 points, which, Davian, I'm sure you understand that callback. But I have Lions over the Bills. I have NFC Championship game, Lions over the Eagles. And then AFC Championship game, I have the Bills over the Ravens.
All right. This is where we really, I think, start to split. So I have the Ravens in the conference championship as well. I have them facing the Texans. And I have the Texans heading to the Super Bowl. And on the NFC side, I have the Bucks playing the Commanders, and the Commanders going on to the Super Bowl. I think that this Commanders team is going to be very, very.
I think we feed off each other really well, Davian. I think we feed off each other really well because there's me who's like, I'm going to go Bills, Lions, this 2 seed in the AFC and the 1 seed in the NFC, and you're like, hold up, hold the line. The Houston Texans versus the Washington Commanders, and I love that.
I think it's great. I think it's great because we need somebody to make the stupid prediction, so when it happens, we can just TikTok farm it and just be like, we predicted this back on August 26th, when we're recording this. But any case, I just personally think that this Commander team can be very sneaky in the playoffs, and I think that the sneakiness is going to lead them into the Super Bowl. Now, with the Super Bowl itself, I think that the Lombardi Trophy is heading back to FedEx Field. I think that the Commanders beat the Texans in the Super Bowl.
That'd be so funny. I wish. Could we get a Dan Snyder cam during the Super Bowl parade if that happened? I think that'd be so funny. The big thing for me on the Texans is just the offensive line really regressed this past season from past season to this year. So that's my big hang up on them. And then Commanders, I have them as an 11-win team, but the defense concerns me. But sure, why not? These are predictions for a reason. These predictions are our own predictions. So I will certainly not fault someone for having a little bit of fun with theirs. And who knows? Maybe your predictions look a lot better than mine. Maybe the Bills and Lions both have terrible seasons. And your predictions wind up being much better than mine. So that's always the fun in watching the games and seeing how the season plays out. But that'll do for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to us for 51 minutes about the upcoming NFL season. Let us know in the comments below who you guys are high on, who you guys are low on, who you guys have winning the Super Bowl, etc. And as always, for Davian, I'm Raffi. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
Peace.